Sonic music has always been great. Hey, even if you dislike the Sonic series, you have to admit that it has some banger soundtracks. And it's always been that way, regardless of the game's quality. Okay, well maybe that's not entirely true, but Sonic has had consistently good soundtracks. Until recently. Since the release of Sonic Superstars, Sonic game soundtracks have been on a steep decline in the eyes of many. This is partially due to the overuse of electronic instrumentation, resulting in a lack of variety that Sonic soundtracks are typically known for. And there's also the fact that some of these soundtracks actually sound pretty bad. But even with all of that, I don't think it's very safe to say that we're never getting good Sonic music again. And this is not just me coping, there's actually some solid proof. Let's take a look at the last good Sonic soundtrack according to the majority of Sonic fans. Sonic Frontiers. I could talk about this game's music all day. It has the variety, the production, the theming, all of it is great. The open zones have more atmospheric, calming music. Cyberspace has upbeat electronic music with hints of dubstep, drum and bass, and even a touch of IDM. The Titan boss fights have metalcore with vocals from Kellen Quinn, and how could we forget the lo-fi with Biggs Fishing? There is something here for everyone. And it's no surprise that a lot of people consider Frontiers' soundtrack to be one of Sonic's best. Hell, I'm one of those people. This game's soundtrack was directed and mainly composed by Tomoyo Otani, and that's no coincidence. He has worked on several Sonic soundtracks, getting his first lead composer role with Sonic 06, and I think we can all agree that despite 06's shortcomings, it has a banger soundtrack. Otani also went on to be the lead composer of Sonic Unleashed, Colors, Lost World Forces, and of course Frontiers, and he contributed to pretty much every other Sonic game in some way, including deep cuts like Sonic Runners, which by the way, Sonic Runners has a fantastic soundtrack. However, all of that stopped after Frontiers, which currently sits as the last game Otani worked on. Just keep that in mind. The year after Sonic Frontiers, we had Sonic Superstars, and yeah, this game's soundtrack was all over the place. It has a very large roster of composers, which ultimately led to this game not having a single clue of what sound it wanted to go for. You have lead composer Jun Sonoe, known for his work on the adventure games, composing these weird nostalgia-like Genesis tracks with very weird instrumentation, but then you have T. Lopes returning from his work on Sonic Mania, composing some of the most beautiful tracks you've ever heard with Superstars. And then there are other composers like Rentaro Soma, returning from Sonic Frontiers, and Japanese chiptune artist Toriena, both of whom make very solid contributions to this game's soundtrack. It's just weird because at this soundtrack's highest point, it's really damn good, but at its lowest point, it's borderline unlistenable. I honestly chalk this up to the wide range of composers and their varying styles. I really don't think there's anyone in particular to blame for this. So let's just move on to Shadow Generations. Now this game's music had some pretty big shoes to fill with how great the soundtrack of Sonic Generations was, and unfortunately, a lot of the songs here ended up being a hit or miss. This game has a very similar issue to Superstars if you ask me. At its high points, it's fantastic, but at its low points, it's Chaos Island Act 2.
What the fuck is this remix?
And yet again, there is a huge roster of arrangers who remix tracks for this game. You start in Space Colony Arc Act 1, and that's actually a good remix if you ask me. But then right after that, you get to Act 2, and it's like, wait, what the hell happened? And then you learn that two completely different people handled these two tracks, and now it all makes sense. But then there are tracks like Kingdom Valley Act 1 and 2, and those are also handled by different composers, but they both sound great, and they fit the theming with the stage. And then there's the remixes of Chaos Island. The first act has that very hard drum and bass sound at the beginning, but as the track progresses, it leads more into the ambient instruments of Frontiers. It's weird, and low-key, I kinda like it, but you know how this story goes. Act 2 completely shits the bed. I just don't get it. Yet again, you could chalk this up to genre preference or the wide range of composers on this soundtrack, and you know what? Both may be true, but this soundtrack to me is just a mixed bag. And with CrossWorlds now, I feel the same way so far. In fact, it almost sounds worse. We've gotten a handful of tracks teased for CrossWorlds. First, we have the opening theme, and it's Mickey Mouse. It's cheesy, it's generic, but like, it's a theme for a Sonic racing spin-off game. Like, I personally don't really care. But then we have Digital Circuit and Dompa Factory, and these are super whatever. They just sound so generic. There's nothing about these that grabs me, but these at least sound way better than whatever the hell they were doing with Apatos. If you like this remix, that's fine. I'm not here to invalidate anyone's opinions. But this song, man, it just sounds bad. There's not a single part that I like. Even before it goes into that obnoxious breakdown, the random samples and the bells, it just all sounds so muddy, and it doesn't fit Apatos at all. Dragon Road is great though, and the fact that it's being handled by Camellia is also pretty cool. That name gave me some fun Beat Saber flashbacks.
What the fuck?
but that's really the only one from this whole DJ mix that I actually like. Starlight Carnival, Sweet Mountain, and even Market Street by T. Lopes have this weird synth sound that I've personally never enjoyed. The Radical Highway remix is pretty okay though. I just think the snare is a little too loud, like good god. But yeah, so far, this soundtrack is sounding pretty subpar, especially when compared to Team Sonic Racing soundtrack, which like that was the entire game's budget, so of course it was good. But here we are now, with 3 consecutive Sonic soundtracks that just haven't been up to the standard that many people expect from Sonic music. So what does this mean for the future? What does this mean for the soundtrack of Frontiers 2 or whatever? Well, I don't think we have to worry, because the main team behind Sonic Frontiers' soundtrack has not worked on Superstars or Shadowgens or even CrossWorlds. Sure, there are some composers who have crossed over, but the main guy we were talking about at the beginning of the video, Tomoyo Otani, has not worked on any Sonic game since Frontiers. He is clearly the main lead of mainline Sonic game soundtracks at this point. And I guarantee you that for the next mainline 3D Sonic game, he's going to cook up a good soundtrack. I would bet money on it. I am not trying to devalue anybody's work on the recent side game / spin-off soundtracks, I'm really not, but it's clear to me that Sega has saved their all-star team for the mainline stuff, while they get other composers to work on the side games. And you know what? I love that. I love the idea of getting more composers on the series without getting rid of the people who have made good soundtracks in the past, and I think the way they're doing it now is perfect. So no, I don't think Sonic soundtracks are permanently cooked. Sonic Racing CrossWorlds may release with a bunch of subpar music, but I don't think that would say anything about the future of Sonic soundtracks as a whole. But that's all for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye.